You've touched on something so very important here, which is bringing complexity into a simple model, right? But look how damned important it's becoming suddenly. Again, we have got some very, very serious breaches happening again. Mastery is such a fascinating thing because if we applied it here to that concept of simplicity, the mastery is making it simple, broken down, very low level, incredibly boring, consistent, and routine. Cybersecurity, we don't get rewarded for that, do we? We get rewarded for the grandiose project, the big delivery, the enablement of XYZ. Do you think it's time that we stop rewarding for the big outcome and start rewarding for the consistency and the common sense?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that statement, Professor Dan. So here, assume you say rewarding the big outcomes. It's like implementing the complete version of NIST 853 controls, the 832 control suites across, covers your process, network, technology, assets, whatever, right? If you look at all the breaches across all the organizations, across all the tiers of organizations, and you cross-check with their compliance certification, some of them would be SOC 2 compliant, some of them are ISO 27001 2013 compliant, some of them NIST compliant, right? So they've got these certifications, which means they've implemented all those controls, which means their cybersecurity maturity is like level 3, at least, and about. So why in the world have they got compromised?
And I asked myself, I've got your post right here. I think it's fascinating. If we've got all of this wonderful stuff, millions deployed, pen testing galore, every control you can think of, amazing teams, GRC functions, compliance, everything.
And I don't like the way you call it pen testing. We'll talk about that later. But
I don't either. And I run a pen testing company. Well, I don't actually. There you go. I run a cybersecurity company that knows about pen testing. In fact, actually, let's quickly talk about that because the other day, we were working with a client who already has a pen testing firm. That's very, very common. Multiple ones. We are looking at the findings that they've got and helping the company contextualize the what if around the finding from the pen test. Now, how cool is that? And also, we're helping them uplift and find the misconfigurations and the failure of understanding of your assets that the pen testing didn't pick up. Now, that's real pen testing in my mind because we look at that holistic journey.
More often than not, unfortunately, it's become a tick in the box activity wherein CISOs, including me and the other organizations, need a yearly pen test to be done. Getting that done once a year, I have no problem because maybe that'll suit your legal requirements, or you have cyber insurance or your legal ramifications. But that is in no way a measure of how good your infrastructure is against cyber attacks. So I would rather call it security testing, and you're testing the gaps and the weaknesses of the human mind, and you would look at gaps and weaknesses not just from the outside, you would also do it within your network and see, hey, if I compromise this web server internally, which can be possible by a phishing attack, so where can I move laterally? North, south, east, west? What critical assets can I reach control? How do I elevate my privileges, right? This goes back to your AD function, which you're talking about, Professor Dan, is when you configure your Active Directory, keeping the core basics in mind, you would do a very good job of locking down user access by default. So security testing to look at your gaps, weaknesses, not just to look at your vulnerability from the outside and say, hey, look, I've got an exploit on the wild. I'm going to use Metasploit. I'm going to hack it. No, 80% at least of all the compromises have been mainly exploiting your general gaps and weaknesses, right? Which could have been avoided if you'd followed the simplistic procedures. Again, try and get the human mind.
I think you're absolutely on point here, Sid. And this is what I had frustration with for so many years. We've been running business now for 24 years. I think it got to the point where we ourselves asked ourselves a different question, which is, if so many people have so much maturity, capability, and knowledge in their organizations, and to a greater or lesser extent funding, then why are they hacked?
That's a very interesting question. Multiple teams for cybersecurity, right? I've seen the GRC team, like you've mentioned. There's always been a security engineering team. There are security analysts. There's a cyber threat intelligence team now. I don't know how they actually convert the threat intelligence specific to a particular organization into actual proactive work. So having multiple teams is good. Maybe the organization is massive. You need multiple teams. But again, I'm pretty sure with all this madness of trying to cover all your cybersecurity areas, right? So you got GRC, you've got engineering, you've got analysis, you've got incident response, right? You've got even your legal teams, right? And in between the mix, you got all your technical things, vulnerability remediation, management, risk assessment. I think with all this chaos and madness, we've sort of lost the way of looking things through a particular perspective. The perspective is to get focused back on what you're trying to protect. So security is all about ensuring your business runs seamlessly without being interrupted by unauthorized intruders or attacks. Security is not, you don't implement cybersecurity or IT security to protect your Active Directory. That's the wrong direction. Don't get me wrong, you need to have your Active Directory protected, but you just don't implement security to protect particular assets. You don't implement security to say, hey, look, I'm going to do very well with the compliance model. I'm going to implement each and every control, bang, 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 bang. I'm going to have a very wonderful governance structure. No, that's losing track of what you're planning to do.
Your statement is a little more profound, I think, than you realize here, Sid. You've identified that people go around trying to close so many things. If we take that endeavor, it is a game without end and it cannot be done in large organizations now. It's too big a problem. And the moment, if you do it, it will erode immediately. People think it's patches that get you hacked or failure of patches, which is not the case. So many misconfigurations, human thinking, systems design. It's that whole multitude of that chaos, if you like, or the complexity that brings things together. It results in a sort of permeability of an environment. If we take right way to the beginning of our conversation, the ability to rationalize what is our crown jewel, what is the most important thing, how we're going to look at this, and how we're actually going to think about the ways it can be attacked, that can be so much more revealing.